Welcome back to Talking Sports with Brandon. The day is finally here that the Super Bowl will take place. It's the Eagles and the Chiefs for Super Bowl 57 in Arizona. And we're finally here just to talk about the one game. So, the 17 weeks of the regular season, the couple weeks of the NFL playoffs have led us to, I guess you could say, arguably the two best teams. I think people, you could say the Niners, you could say the Bills, the Bengals towards the end. But throughout the entirety of the season, no doubt the Eagles have been the best team in the NFC and maybe even the NFL. And the Chiefs, we've talked about it a lot on this channel about how people were viewing this year as going to be a down year for the Chiefs. You lose Tyreek Hill. You kind of just lose some other guys. You don't have a lot of receiving weapons outside of Kelsey. You don't know how the defense is going to look. Just a lot of questions, and also other teams in the division improving their rosters and trying to get first place back in the AFC West. But the Chiefs, they kind of just do what they always do. They went 14-3 this year, so clearly no regression, no downturn from them. And they're back in the Super Bowl again, third time now in 5 years. The reason that I picked them in that game, the AFC Championship game against the Bengals, was because they had to reach another Super Bowl. You can't go 5 years of home AFC Championship games and only make two Super Bowls. And even in those two Super Bowls, you went 1-1. And again, there's an argument that you definitely could have, should have, whatever you want to say, could have lost that first Super Bowl against the 49ers in 2019. So they had to get back to another one. So I picked them. And going into this game, I think the both teams I think they're matched up very well, to be honest. Now, the better defense goes to the Eagles. There's no doubt about it. But I think offensively, the Chiefs, it's already been announced. They have no one who has an injury designation. So anyone who's already been out is out. But anyone who was maybe limited or is questionable, they're all good to go. So that means, Kadarius Toney, Juju Smith-Schuster, they're all good to go. Because if you remember back to the AFC Championship game, for one, you went into the game with Kelsey. There was a chance he wasn't even going to play. He was a game time decision. He hurt his back in practice on the Friday before the game. He did play. It was great. But there was a chance he wasn't even going to play. Then you lose these guys in the middle of the game. You're trotting out there with Sky Moore. Sky Moore was like your number one receiver towards the end of that game. So it's good to have those guys healthy and back. They're not the best receivers in the world. The Eagles definitely have the better receivers in Brown and Smith. But to have those guys who have been out there on the field the entire season, just kind of know the playbook a little bit better, kind of just can feel Mahomes a little bit more than some backups and guys who haven't played a lot. It's good to have those guys out there. Now, Kelsey's still the lead guy. He's still the guy that you have to lean on. And that's obviously the challenge for Philadelphia defensively is how do you stop Kelsey? How do you at least limit him? Now, he's been really good in the playoffs, but the Jaguars game, he had a ton of catches, but I don't even think he broke 100 yards. In the conference championship game, he was, again, really solid in that game, obviously. He went for, I believe he had 100 yards in this game against the Bengals. He was 7 for 78. So, again, good, not great. Obviously, he did have the touchdown, though, so that's just what he does in the red zone. He's going to be the biggest threat. But the guy who stepped up in that game was MVS. He had six catches, 116 yards, a touchdown. He's a guy where you brought him over this offseason from Green Bay. He was always, a solid guy in Green Bay, but when you have, Aaron Jones in the backfield and you have Devontae Adams, obviously as the elite top-tier wide receiver, he didn't have a ton of opportunities, and it seemed like him going to the Chiefs where you lose Tyreek Hill, you kind of bring MVS in to kind of be that down-the-field threat and can make a little bit more, plays in this offense with how wide open and how obviously amazing Mahomes is. It's not like Rodgers wasn't good before, but Mahomes is just a different style of guys. So you kind of expected more from him this season. Didn't really do much, was kind of injured, wasn't really there a lot of the times, but he came up big last week when they needed it. They're going to need him again. I think him and Juju got to play big factors in this team for their offense because despite how good the Eagles' defense is, and it is a really good defense, it can be beat. If you can withstand the pressure, just give Mahomes an extra half a second, give him a second, he'll hit guys down the field. You can beat this team deep. You can get, you can expose their weaknesses in the secondary. Pretty similar to San Francisco, I would say. I think they're a little more well-rounded of a defense. I think the defensive line is just better, than San Francisco's defensive line, front line. So I think that definitely helps. But if you just give your quarterback enough time in the pocket, I think he can expose that secondary. And again, when you have Mahomes, you're gonna find the weaknesses. You're gonna find the easy zone targets in that defense. So that's gonna be the biggest factor in this game is can you give Mahomes time in the pocket? And even if it's not in the pocket, even if he has to escape the pocket, you got to give him time. So that's going to be the biggest thing for them. I think that they can hold up. It's going to be very tough, but with Mahomes, another week of rest with the ankle, he's going to have a little bit more mobility. It definitely looked pretty good against Cincinnati. Like, he definitely was moving around, so it shouldn't really bother him that much. Now, if someone lands on it, he gets hit, whatever happens, if it kind of re-aggravates it, that's a different story. But going to the game being fully healthy, or at least 80+% healthy, whatever it is, just enough to where he does kind of resemble a truly 100% healthy Patrick Mahomes, I think you got to feel confident in that. So his legs got to be big. Again, I've always said it, and it's true these last 5 playoffs, is that his legs are a bigger factor when the playoffs start. And we always see it every single year. It's got to play a big factor in this game if they're going to win, because he's gonna have to escape the pocket. Even if they hold the pressure, he's going to have to still move out of the pocket right or left and make throws to find guys down the field. Even if it's a run for 5 yards, it's still a big 5 yards. 2nd and 5 is better than 2nd and 10. So his mobility is going to be big in this one. And I think you can expose this Philadelphia defense in their secondary. Now, flipping to the other side of the ball and going to the Philadelphia offense and the Kansas City defense, the biggest factor for Kansas City on defense is Chris Jones. If Chris Jones plays like he did in the championship game against the Bengals, it's going to be a tough day for Philadelphia. Now, look, it's just one guy, but if he's going to have pressure throughout and he's going to be beating this offensive line, which I think you definitely can say is the best offensive line in football, if he's beating them early, that's going to be a problem. Going into that Bengals game, again, one of the more crazy stats I think that there is was that he never even had a playoff sack. And I think he played in, 12 or 13 playoff games before that, somewhere around that number, a double-digit number. And he never had a sack. That's a crazy number for someone who's been this good for this long. And he's only been getting better. This year he was absolutely dominant from the interior defensive tackle spot, and he can even slide outside a couple times, which is what we saw against Cincinnati, where he slid outside and he got pressure. So he's going to be on the inside most of the time. Is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? We'll see, because obviously with Lane Johnson on that right tackle, it's going to be tough to get. It's almost impossible to get around him. But then you got Kelsey on that center position, Mailata at the left tackle. You got Dickerson as well. So you have a lot of good guys on that offensive line. It's going to be tough to get through them. I think Chris Jones has to have a monster game. He already put in one great game against Cincinnati to get them here, because without him in that game, I don't know if the Chiefs win, because he gets the big sack to get the ball back towards the end of the game. He had the big sack early as well. He was getting sustained pressure throughout that game. Again, they sacked Burrow 5 times in the first half, and that was a lot due to him. So he's got to be on his A game in this one. I think he will be. I think it'll be tough, though, because, again, this is the best offensive line in football. I think a lot of people would agree with that. So it's going to be a tough one, but I think he can do it. But he's the biggest factor for them. Now, offensively for Philadelphia, it's going to be Hurts. He's obviously, if he didn't get injured this season, he would have been the MVP. It went to Mahomes, which it should have been. It should have been Mahomes once Hurts got injured. It missed a couple games. Even that last game he did play in, he really didn't do much. So it should have been Mahomes. 5,000 yards, 40+ touchdowns, 14-3 record. No doubt about it. But again, if Hurts doesn't get injured, he is the MVP of the league. And he played like it. There's no doubt about it. Now, I personally, I think that, not saying you just plug any quarterback in that system and they do as well as Hurts. No, that's not the case. But is he, truly like a top 5 quarterback, a top whatever? No, he's not. Is he a top 10 quarterback? Yes. But is he a top 5 quarterback? Is he a Burrow, Mahomes, Allen? He's not that at all. He's good, no doubt. But, there's a lot of times where this offense can just kind of do it without him. And look, his legs play a big factor in that. So it's not like it's just giving the ball to a workhorse back or a mix of backs who can just go for 200 yards a game and he's not really doing much. No, he's very much contributing to the running game, and the read option and everything that they do is the biggest factor of how they play their offense. But if just to say that he's clearly the leader and he's that type of guy, personally, I don't think he is. Now, if he plays like it in this game, maybe it changes my mind. But I think in this game, they're going to try and rely on the run, whether it's with him, Sanders, Scott, Gainwell, whoever it's going to be. They have so many guys. But I think the run's definitely going to be a big factor because, the X factor for defense is Jones. Obviously, he's going to try and get pressure on the quarterback on dropbacks. If you can establish a running game and kind of get your guys moving forward, if you get that offensive line pushing forward, getting defense on their heels, and then kind of confusing them a little bit because of all the options and the RPOs and everything that they do, that's where you're going to be able to beat this defense. Look, it's not the best defense in the world. It plays up in the playoffs. It plays a lot better. It can get timely stops and get big sacks when it has to. We can turn the ball over when it needs to. Again, they picked off Burrow twice, so it can be done for this defense, but are they as good as a Philadelphia? Are they as good as a San Francisco? They're not. They don't have that type of defense, but they're good enough. They can get stops when they need to and give the ball back to Mahomes in key situations. And that's really all you could ask for a defense. If this was a middle-of-the-pack offense, even just a top 10 offense, this defense probably wouldn't be good enough to, make a Super Bowl run. But considering the fact that you have Patrick Mahomes and you have obviously arguably the top offense in the league, I guess Philadelphia could rival that, this defense can get it done. So, I think that that's going to be a really good battle. I think both battles are going to be really good because the Chiefs offense versus Philadelphia defense is more like the powerhouse. It's more, your best fighter versus our best fighter. And then the other side, Philadelphia's offense is really good, don't get me wrong, but I think they can kind of be stopped a little bit. We've seen it throughout the season where there's just times where they're a little out of sync. The run game kind of seems like the run game is working, and then they'll just go pass heavy, and it's not really working, And then there's times where the pass is working, and the run just really isn't going anywhere unless Hurts is scrambling out of the pocket and getting yards or making a miracle play. It doesn't really work, and they kind of get stuck a little bit. Now, there's other times where as soon as the game starts, they're going down the field, they're scoring, they look confident, they got momentum. We saw it in the San Francisco game, the Giants game, they're going right down the field and scoring a touchdown. So I guess that's good, but there definitely are times where it's not really much what the defense is doing. It's kind of just play calling. Is it just things aren't working? The seconds are a little bit off. The timing's just not perfectly there. Whatever it exactly is. But we'll see how they come out. I'm interested to see who does get the ball first in this game because if it is Philadelphia, whether they just elect to receive the ball or Kansas City defers, I'm curious to see what happens on that first drive because I think that would be a big, kind of tell the tale for this game is whoever gets the ball on the first drive, what they do with it. I don't really, I haven't really looked at the history or really remember, but, like how many times has a team took the opening drive for a touchdown in the Super Bowl? I don't think it's a lot, to be honest. I think it's definitely been happened, no doubt, but it's not like a team's getting that ball, they're going down the field, they're scoring a touchdown. I feel like usually, you're kind of feeling the other team out just a little bit. You kind of know what you're going to do anyways, but you're feeling them out. You're kind of seeing what's going to work, what may not work. You're kind of going through the usually the 15 plays that you have. That's usually what an offense will do, as around 10 to 15 plays that you're going to call, you're going to go with it. It's just easy yards, kind of moves the chains a little bit, gets some momentum with your team, and you kind of go. And then after that, it's you see what the defense is doing, you see what they're giving you, and obviously all that works itself out. But I'm interested to see who gets the ball first, and if they score a touchdown, even a field goal, just to get points on the board, make yourself feel better. But I'm definitely looking out for that. So with all that and everything we've talked about with this game, I think it's going to be a really good game. Before I do make my final pick, I think it's going to be a really good game. Like I said, it's arguably the two best offenses throughout the entirety of the season. And in Philadelphia's case, the defense. But again, the Chiefs, when the playoffs happen, their defense is just better. So it's going to be a battle when you have an all-time great quarterback, and he is. It's just not even a question in Mahomes, who is an all-time great quarterback. whether he wins or loses this game, he still is. But he's never going to be out of the fight. I mean, even the Tampa Super Bowl that he played, like his team, I mean, his offensive line was destroyed. I mean, he had no one on that offensive line. He was running for his life at all times. This offensive line is way better than that. I mean, that one was, injured, so that's why. But this one is a really solid offensive line. It's not as good as Philadelphia's, but it's definitely top, 10, no doubt. Maybe even higher than that. But, it's really solid. It can hold up. It can make plays for you. It more so making plays where they just give Mahomes more time to make plays. But even that Tampa Super Bowl, though, with all that was going on, and they did kind of get destroyed, but he was still making plays. He was still doing his best that he could. And if he had any more time in the pocket, that game would have been way different because Tampa's offense really wasn't doing much of that game. It was just that, the Chiefs' offense had nowhere to go, which, again, part of it was offensive line, and part of it was Tampa's defense. That was a really good defense, but an extra second in the pocket, I'll never drop back. I think it was a little bit differently, but for this game, just to say the spread, Philadelphia is -1.5, which I think makes sense. I think most people, Philadelphia, I guess you can argue, is the better team, and it kind of seems like it could be their year. It's kind of, it seemed like it was the Bills' year. Going into the season, I think if you polled America, I think almost like 60% of them, would have said the Bills are going to win the Super Bowl. Coming off of what happened last year, they get Von Miller. It just seems like it was their time again. The Chiefs, losing Tyreek Hill, people thought they were going to be a little bit worse. So it seemed like it was the Bills' time. Obviously, that did not work out. Philadelphia kind of took that over around midway through the season when they're 10-0, 9-0, whatever they exactly were, and kind of just seemed like it was going to be their year, and it still does seem like to be like that. But I'm putting my faith in the guy who has to, I think has to win the Super Bowl, in Mahomes. I said it last week for that game when he had to make it to the Super Bowl, had to win another home playoff game for the championship against the Bengals, a team that, he hadn't beat Burrow, all that was going on in that game. You saw it after the game with everything they were talking about. It did mean a lot to them about, all the talk from Cincinnati and about, people talking about Burrow. Burrow wins this game. Is he already better than Mahomes? I personally, I would have said no anyways, even if he did win. But I think they really took that to heart, the team and Mahomes himself. So it hasn't been a lot of trash talk, anything like that for this game. It's not comparison. It's, Hurts isn't, it's his third year. It's his second year as a starter. He's not, this type of quarterback that Mahomes is. So you can't really compare the two in that sense. But I think the comparison for Mahomes is the all-time greats, the Bradys, the Montanas, those type of guys, because that's where he's going to end up one day. And, to be 1-2 in the Super Bowl, let's say they lose this game and you look back at the 5 years, and look, they still has a lot of years left. Reed's still going to be back. They still got a good team, but if they lose this game, that's, again, 5 years of at least making it to a home playoff game for the AFC Championship, and you're 1-2 in the Super Bowl. It's not what, you would sign up for it if someone were to tell you that, but you would have hoped that it would have been better. At least 2-1. I mean, obviously to go 3-0 is very tough, but you had to be at least 2-1, It's I just think it's going to leave a bad mark because, look, he's gotten back to the Super Bowl, and it's not easy to get back to the Super Bowl. When you see Brady do it for all those years, it's not that easy. I mean, you see so many guys that only make it to one Super Bowl. I mean, Drew Brees. I mean, Aaron Rodgers. Peyton Manning took forever for him to win. I mean, he didn't make it to 2 Super Bowls, but for him to win another one, it was his last game of his professional career. So you just don't know when you're going to get back to the Super Bowl and then if you're going to win it. So I don't think you can just look at this and be like, all right, we'll be back next year, the year after that, year after that. You just don't know. Injuries happen, people leave, stuff changes, another team gets better, they just beat you. It's just, who knows what could happen. So I think he needs to win this game. I think you look back to these 5 years, and he's 2-1 in Super Bowls. Most of the time when, you win the Super Bowl, the quarterback's the MVP. It would have to be a very low-scoring game, or it had to be something crazy, but most of the time it's the quarterback, and usually with the Mahomes team, you would assume that, Mahomes would be the MVP. He's probably going to make the best plays and have the best, he's going to have the best stats, is what I was trying to say. So I think you look back, it's 2 Super Bowl wins, 2 Super Bowl MVPs, 2 regular season MVPs as well. All the yards, all the touchdowns, all the stats, everything like that. That's where I think he needs to be. And that's why I'm going with the Chiefs. I'm picking the Chiefs in this game. I think it's going to be close. I'm going to say a final score, but I think it's going to be a very close game. I do not see it being, one-sided at all. Not even saying just one team blows the other team out. Just saying, like, I don't really see one team kind of controlling the game. I think the only way that happens is if Philadelphia gets up early, whether it's 14-0 or 14-3, something like that, to where, like, they're kind of moving the ball down the field, and the Chiefs are struggling a little bit. Because then the run game comes into play. You can RPO off that. You can go play action, and you can kind of work your offense a little bit differently. So I think that's one way. But, I don't personally see that happening. And I think it'll be a close game. So I'm going to go with the Chiefs. And the final score that I'm going to pick, I'm between two. And it's basically the same number. But I'm going to go 28-24. I was between 28-24 and 27-24, but I see 28-24 as the final score of this game. I think Chiefs win it. I think Mahomes is MVP, and I just think that Mahomes has to win this game. I said last week was a legacy for him. This is even more so. It's one thing for a championship game, but it's another thing for a Super Bowl. He's got to win this game. Playing the Eagles, I think we'd look back at these 5 years, and again, who knows? Maybe it's another couple years as well. But at least for right now, it'd be 5 years, and that's pretty successful. 2-1 in Super Bowls, 2 MVPs, Super Bowl and regular season, and I think that'd be a very, very successful, run in the NFL. So I'm going with the Chiefs, 28-24. That's my final score. We'll see what happens after the Super Bowl. I'll be back sometime next week to talk about the game. I didn't forget about also doing kind of just like the overall NFL video. I wanted to wait because we're still waiting on, I think, at least one coaching hire. I think Arizona is the only team that hasn't hired a coach yet, and just some other stuff. There was some stuff throughout the week of guys getting fired, some guys maybe retiring as well. We still have all that. So I was going to wait a little bit longer. I think after the Super Bowl is when everything will be cleared up, so we'll dive into that then. But the next video you will see will be a recap of the Super Bowl, where we'll talk about the game, we'll talk about if our pick was right, and kind of everything else that goes along with it. So I thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video about recapping the Super Bowl game. So thank you, and I'll see you.